Good morning, everyone. I will wait a few more moments to make sure we're all connected, then we'll get started. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started with our usual introductions here while everyone is still connecting. Good morning. I'm Hearing Officer Nicole Kinsey with the Administrative Hearings Office of the State Water Resources Control Board. It's no, it is not. It is August 16th, 2024. This is a status conference for the pending petition for assignment of state filed application 5634 and the associate water right application 5634X of Nevada Irrigation District, and the pending request for release from priority of state filed applications 5633 and 5634 in favor of water right license 11120 of South Sutter Water District. This status conference is being conducted by Zoom web conference and is also being broadcast live on the AHO YouTube channel. The audio and video are being recorded, and we will post files of this recording as usual, along with the Zoom-generated transcript to the AHO FTP site. The YouTube recording is also available on the AHO YouTube webpage. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties today trying to communicate with us, please send an email to the AHO at admin@waterboards.ca.gov. I think this will be a fairly brief status conference check-in, but it does take us a few minutes to get through appearances. I'm going to go ahead and call all of the appearances today. As usual, I will identify each of the entities that has filed NOIs, and if you are representing that entity, please go ahead and unmute your microphone and state your name. And I will start with Nevada Irrigation District.
Good morning, Andrew McClure of the Manassian Law Firm for Nevada Irrigation District, and I see on the call Jennifer Hansen, NID's General Manager as well.
Great, thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
South Sutter Water District.
Good morning, Ms. Kinsey. Austin Cho of Downey Brand on behalf of South Sutter Water District.
Thank you. Good morning. Contra Costa Water District.
Good morning. Holly Jacobson at BKS Law Firm for Contra Costa Water District and for Yuba County Water Agency.
Thank you. Good morning. Camp Far West Irrigation District.
Good morning, Kelly Tabor, Sumac, Simmons and Dunn for Camp Far West Irrigation District. And also in the meeting is the district's engineer, Nick Bonsignor.
Thank you. Good morning. State Water Contractors. Placer County Water Agency. U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. California Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Good morning, Kathleen Miller for CDFW.
Thank you. Good morning. California Sport Fishing Protection Alliance.
Good morning, Chris Schutz for the California Sport Fishing Protection Alliance.
Thank you. Good morning. Trout Unlimited.
Morning, Ms. Kinsey. Tracy Sheehan, Foothills Water Network, and also Circle Today, but also other NGOs that I could list now.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so Trout Unlimited, Gold Country Fly Fishers, Protect American River Canyons, Northern Council of Federation of Fly Fishermen, and possibly also the Sierra Club. Yes, Sierra Club.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And if I call any of those again, you can please feel free to just speak up again. Thank you. I appreciate it. Friends of the River.
Good morning, Ms. Kinsey. Keiko Mertz on behalf of Friends of the River.
Thank you. Good morning. American Whitewater.
That's my mistake, Miss Kenzie. Also American
Also,
Whitewater.
great, thank you. Nevada City Rancheria Tribal Council. United Auburn Indian Community. American Rivers.
Also American Rivers.
Also American Rivers, thank you. South Yuba River Citizen League.
Yes, I'm in South Yuba River Citizens League today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And you may not have this one. American River Watershed Institute.
Otis, good morning, Otis Wallen on behalf of American River Watershed Institute.
Thank you. Good morning. Save Auburn Ravine Salmon and Steelhead.
My apologies. Also Sarsis.
Thank you. And then I have Diana Suarez and Cam Suarez.
Good morning, Diana Suarez for Diana and Cam Suarez.
Thank you. Good morning. David Sprunk and Sherry Sprunk. Bob Center. Dan Buckley with Tributary Whitewater. And Jeff Litton.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Is there anyone on the call who I missed?
Good morning. This is Elise Nelson from Placer County Water Agency. I got logged out and logged back in. I may have missed that.
Thank you. Check you off the list. Thank you. And then did I call Nevada County? That one I seem to...
The Low Sierra Club is here, but I'm happy to have Tracy represent us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Good morning. This is Laura Peters, a member of the public.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peters. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I think the purpose of the status conference, well, first of all, I received status conference statements from NID and South Sutter Water District. I read those. Thank you. I appreciate their brevity and also the update. And I'd like to get a brief update from both of you and then talk about next steps. As I said, I think this will be fairly quick since there doesn't seem to be much of an update, but we should talk about what we're going to do next and what is efficient. So maybe I will turn first to you, Mr. McClure, for an update on the plan for water process. As I understand from the status conference statement, you still don't have a decision from your board on exactly what will come out of the plan for water process and whether you will continue to pursue the Centennial Dam project. Is that an accurate understanding?
That is correct, and I'll defer to Ms. Hanson for further details, but again, the plan for water process and the decisions coming out of that are going to drive NID's continued strategy with respect to this water right. So, and we, I believe, do anticipate having a decision on that in the very near term. And so I think my recommendation will be to put another status conference out for probably 60 days or something like that. And at that time, it's very likely that we will have a more definite report at that time, or that some other action will have been taken by that time. So Ms. Hanson, I don't know if you have any further detail that you want to provide in terms of plan for water process.
I think that is correct, Mr. McClure. The district is getting ready to take forward an item that will make a final recommendation related to this particular water right and any preferred alternative for a storage project. And based off of the final report for the plan for water, it does not appear that the Centennial project is going to be the preferred alternative, but now we are waiting for that decision to be memorialized by our board through formal action.
Thank you. That's helpful. Is there anything else you'd like to add, either of you, before I move over to South Sutter?
Well, and I'll let Mr. Cho provide his report, but resolution of NID's water right application is not necessarily going to resolve South Sutter's petition for assignment. So that very well could be a separate proceeding, but we'll wait and see what happens once NID makes its decision.
Understood. Thank you. So I will turn to you, Mr. Cho, about any updates that you would like to add with respect to the district's pending petition.
Thank you, Ms. Kenzie. As noted in our status conference statement, we have not made further progress in resolving any pending issues with the remaining protests that are lodged on South Sutter's request for release from priority. The remainder of our status conference seeks some guidance or input from the hearing officer on the pending schedule and the question of whether the hearings on South Sutter and NID's concurrent filings should be done in coordination, or if one can be held before another due to the readiness of the parties. South Sutter maintains it would like to move forward with a hearing on its request for release from priority. And as Mr. McClure notes, the existence of NID's filing for an application for assignment is not necessarily determinative of whether NID and its issues regarding South Sutter can be resolved or dismissed. So a hearing either way is likely needed on South Sutter's request for releases as per stated in the statute. And I'll just note at the March 6th status conference that we held, I believe you stated that you would like to set a hearing for fall of 2024. We recognize that that's not really in the cards at this point, but we would like to get something on calendar sooner than later so that we can avoid further delays. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cho. I am going to allow anyone else to chime in on some of these issues, but let me reflect what I think we should do going forward. It sounds like we should meet again in approximately 60 days. As many of you know, the AHO calendar is getting a little crowded. But we can find a time in about 2 months to briefly meet again. What I think I would ask for before then is about 2 weeks beforehand, filing of status conference statements from NID and South Sutter, and then optional for anyone else who would like to participate, and address the issue of one, when we might have a hearing on South Sutter's petition. We'll have more resolution, I think, or more clarity at the status conference whether NID will be needing a hearing, but I think it's time to move forward on South Sutter's pending petition. So when we could schedule a hearing, given the constraints, which I think we're all aware of, well, not all of us, but many of us are aware of, with the Delta conveyance proceeding and the Sites Reservoir proceeding, which I'm also presiding over, and which many of you or your firms are participating in. So when would we have a hearing? How many days of hearing would we need? And then I also wonder if there are some issues, given the constraints on timing of a hearing. Are there issues that could be addressed in writing, legal issues that could be addressed in writing that may actually narrow the scope of the hearing? I'm particularly thinking about some of these area of origin questions. I don't know. I don't have an opinion as to whether those might be properly addressed in pre-hearing briefings so that we could focus the scope of the hearing. Normally, my approach is to go into the hearing and deal with the legal issues in the closing briefs on the back end. But I wonder here, for efficiency and to narrow the hearing days, whether it makes sense to address some of one or more issues up front. So I'm just asking whether you think that's a good idea in these, to think about it, and if you think that makes sense to propose what those issues might be that could possibly be addressed up front, or if there are none, just to let me know of that. So those three things. When should we conduct the hearing, given other constraints on the hearing officer's time and your constraints representing your clients? How many hearing days we might need, and then whether there are discrete legal issues that might be helpfully addressed in advance in writing. Those would be helpful. So with that thought on the table, I maybe will turn back to you, Mr. McClure. Do you have any comments on that approach? And then I'm going to go around the room for everyone.
No, as far as the first two, I think council and I can certainly try and coordinate in terms of scheduling and days of hearing. I would like, if possible, your status conference order to provide a little bit more direction on the issues that you want explored in a status conference statement. What I'm hearing is sort of an open question as to whether this proceeding might be amenable to something like a summary judgment proceeding, where we've got maybe undisputed facts and then a question of law presented. I don't know if that's what you had in mind, but I do think there are going to be factual questions related to this proceeding, possibly, unless the parties can stipulate. But I don't have enough right now, I think, to write a very articulate statement that will help the hearing officer in terms of structuring the proceeding. But if you could develop those a little bit further in an order, that would be helpful.
I can do that. And what I need to go back and look at it, but what I was generally thinking are these questions about, and maybe there is no dispute, but the area of origin with respect to the Bear River and what areas that encompasses, which of course would include some facts, although I think some of the facts about where the Bear River are, maybe, we can stipulate to where the Bear River is.
Okay.
But there would be legal questions about what constitutes area of origin. But yes, it's certainly fair for me to try to distill that down into written words that are more clear.
Sorry to interrupt, but it's out and yeah, I think maybe what would be most helpful is to get the hearing set, get the number of days set, and then have the parties try and narrow the issues down. I'm just brainstorming. This isn't helpful for anybody, but if you have something you want us to address in the brief, I want to know precisely what that question is, if possible.
Thank you. That makes sense. And there may be nothing. It was a consideration for our collective minds to ponder.
Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. McClure. Mr. Cho, do you have any comments on this proposed path forward?
I think I'm largely in agreement with Mr. McClure regarding an appreciation for some further direction on the scope of the issues you would like us to address in a status conference statement. We noted in our current statement that we would prefer to have a hearing as soon as feasible and suggested sometime early in 2025. I think the number of days required for a hearing will largely depend on the issues that Mr. McClure laid out, relating to whether there are disputes over facts and then questions of law, particularly with the area of origin statutes. The Feigenbaum Act, or those sections of the Water Code, do prescribe some of the substantive issues that need to be resolved in a hearing of this nature. So I would rely on those as setting a foundational baseline for what the hearing issue should entail. But and the parties have also briefed on some of these in some detail over the past few years, which I would also refer back to as possibly a refresher or just a way to single out some of the issues that might be the most pressing in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Cho. I think, and I'll think about this further. It may make sense to articulate what the hearing issues would be, and then talk about whether or not there are any that might be addressed in advance of an evidentiary, the evidentiary portion of the proceeding. And it may be that there aren't any. Let me look to the room. I'll just generally, if there are, if parties would if you would raise your hand, if you would like to, whether virtual or actual, if you would like to chime in on any of these issues before I look out. The next step, I think, would be to look to our calendars to see when we should reconvene in the fall. Ms. Suarez, please.
I would like to continue to call out the cynical nature of this proceeding. The Bear River and its living ecology does not have a seat at this table. I again request that this water right be held in reserve for the living Bear River and the public trust and the indigenous people who depend on this river for life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Suarez. Is there anyone else who would like to chime in on the procedural issues that we discussed?
Yes.
Mr. Schutz, thank you.
So a few sort of broad things and a few narrow things. One, in terms of status conference statements, I would request that the status conference statements from the protagonists, if you were, South Sutter and NID, be required like at least a week in advance of the actual hearing, so that those of us who may wish to respond to those have that opportunity, just as a practical matter. It does seem to me that that what NID decides substantively may have some bearing procedurally, and that discussion of how and what to do in terms of South Sutter's petition may be somewhat different depending on whether or not we get clarity about what NID's future intentions actually are. And so I'm not sure. I would want to be sure that when the next status conference is held, that we have as much information from NID as we can get, so that if an extra month, for example, would allow NID to present with more clarity what its long-term proposals or intentions are, I think it would be helpful for everyone to know that. I'm not very clear about a summary judgment proceeding or what that would entail from Mr. McClure. I'm not sure if a week is going to be enough time to digest that. But it may be necessary to have another status conference to actually set a hearing date. Those were my thoughts.
I understood. Thank you, Mr. Schutz. I think what I would look at is another status conference in late October or mid to late October, with a status conference statement due 2 weeks beforehand, but with the expectation that we would come in and talk about all of these issues again. It would be a chance to revisit some of these, and see whether we have more clarity from NID, more clarity from discussion between the parties about when and how much time we'd need for a hearing, and then it may be just a beginning of a discussion of the hearing issues. I mean, the more it sounds like there's some, I mean, I have a tendency, I just sprung this on you, this idea of maybe addressing something in advance, and that may not be a good idea. It may be just as efficient or more efficient to wrap it all together and not try to parse things out. I'm open to that too. So we can talk about it when we meet again.
I had a clarifying question as
please,
well.
Mr. Schutz, go ahead, and then I'll turn to Mr. Hanson.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
You folks were speaking about area of origin. Were you meaning to say county of origin, or is there something that I'm missing here?
I maybe said county. I may have meant the applicable origin laws that apply to this proceeding, which are called different things for different proceedings. So yeah, yes, I probably was not using the correct term of art, and I mean the correct one, whichever one that is.
Thank
you. Thank you. And I don't mean to say that lightly. I know this is it will be very relevant in this proceeding. Ms. Hanson.
I would just make a recommendation that we take consideration of possibly doing 90 days in response to Mr. Schutz's comments. just from the standpoint that if our board requests one additional meeting to digest the information,
Mhm.
I think we're just going to miss the boat on being able to provide some finality with having to provide the status conference statement 2 weeks prior. But I'm confident that within the 90 days, that does give us a little wiggle room in the event our board or the public has additional questions.
That makes sense to me, and I understand boards do what they do, so.
They do, and I have unfortunately been wrong many times on how quick something will take.
So that would put us, I think, to look sometime in November. But before we pull out calendars, are there any other comments?
Ms. Kinsey, I think NID is also comfortable if we're looking to set hearing for South Sutter sometime in 2025, with, entertaining a date for that sooner than later.
Yes, we want to get some clarity on that.
Yes.
There are other, and part of that is there are other, as many of us know, there are other moving parts with the Sites Reservoir proceeding and the Delta Conveyance proceeding. So it will be a matter of working around those dates as well. But I understand we'll try to make sure there's plenty of notices, and so there's time to prepare. I appreciate that. All right, let's pull out our calendars. Pull out mine. All right, I'm inclined to look at either the week of, it's the 11th, but that's Veterans Day, or the week of November 18th, excuse me. For a first foray, I would propose November 18th at 1 p.m. Does anyone have a irresolvable conflict with that timing? And that would mean I would ask for status conference statements on November 4th from NID and SSWD, so that everyone has a chance to look at them. And if you'd like, and the status conference statements would be optional from others. And if you take a look at NIDs or South Sutters and want to submit something in writing, that's fine. Just get it to me, but somewhat before November 18th so I can read it. So I'll put that out as a last call. November 18th at 1 p.m. Are there any concerns with that? So we will do that. I will also get out a procedural ruling that lays out what we talked about and what I'd like to see in a status conference statement, and sets out these dates. So a notice of a status conference, and then a description of what the information I'd like to see in those status conference statements. And any other thoughts I think may be helpful for you to consider. Is there anything else before we close today? All right, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. I think this was productive, and we are adjourned. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.